Crowds jostle through a once tranquil Kyoto alley at dusk. A geisha scurries by, pursued by a wall of smartphones. On Mount Fuji's slopes at midnight, a snaking line of hikers trudges upward by headlamp, trampling volcanic grit and leaving litter in their wake. In Okinawa, sacred island forests echo not with prayer, but with the chatter of tour groups straying off trail. Japan's tourism boom is back, but not everyone is celebrating. Japan flung open its doors after the pandemic, unleashing a flood of tourists eager to live out their lost in translation and anime dreams. In 2024, international visitors hit a record 36.9 million, even higher than pre-COVID levels. Foreign travel spending surged to 5.3 trillion yen, 10% above 2019's all-time high. The government couldn't be happier. Ever since the Visit Japan campaign in 2003, tourism has been touted as a pillar of economic growth. Prime Minister Kishida's administration and its successor doubled down with ambitious goals: 60 million inbound travelers by 2030, betting big that more tourists are always better. Yet as tour buses and cruise ships pour back in, cracks are showing. Locals from Kyoto to Okinawa whisper about sightseeing pollution, a popular term for the noise, trash, and bad behavior invading their communities. Recent surveys reveal growing resentment. In Kyoto, 80% of residents say public transport and streets are too crowded with visitors, and 75% are upset about littering, rule breaking, and rude behavior by tourists. The assumption that tourism is a pure blessing is being challenged in real time. This video will journey through Japan's post-pandemic tourism boom and its dark side, from ancient temples in Kyoto to coral reefs in Okinawa, asking, how much is too much? Few places exemplify Japan's tourism dilemma like Kyoto, the nation's ancient capital. In 2018, a staggering 52 million people visited Kyoto, spending 1.3 trillion yen and fueling nearly 1/5 of the city's GDP. Locals tolerated the pre-pandemic hustle as a necessary trade-off, until it spun out of control. By 2019, the city was grappling with overtourism. Entire neighborhoods converted into B&Bs, locals priced out of housing, and heritage sites turned into backdrops for Instagram. Economists even coined tourism gentrification to describe how short-term rentals pushed residents out for lucrative tourist lodgings. Kyoto City Hall struggled to cope. They launched a Mind Your Manners campaign, urging visitors to respect local customs. They even terminated the popular all-day bus pass to discourage thrifty tourists from swamping city buses, a desperate bid to free up seats for commuters. Still, complaints rolled in. By late 2022, 4 in 5 Kyotoites said their daily commute was agony due to tourist crowds, and many bemoaned the rise of sloppy habits like eating while walking or leaving trash, behavior locals dubbed a form of pollution. In the iconic Gion district, tensions reached a fever pitch. This neighborhood's narrow alleys, lined with tea houses, have for centuries been home to geiko and maiko, geisha entertainers who move silently to evening appointments. Post-pandemic, Gion was mobbed nightly by smartphone-wielding outsiders angling for a glimpse. Visitors gave chase when a kimono-clad geisha appeared, some ignoring signs begging them to keep distance and not touch the performer's silk robes. Others trespassed on private property for a better photo. By December 2023, Gion residents had seen enough. They petitioned city officials to crack down on these unruly tourists, stressing that their living, breathing neighborhood is not a theme park for voyeuristic travelers. Japan's capital is enormous enough that tourists can disappear in the masses, but even Tokyo has felt the boom's strain. January 2024 alone saw 2.69 million foreign visitors, nearly matching 2019's pace, thanks to a weak yen and pent-up revenge travel. Beloved sites like Asakusa's Sensoji Temple overflow with tour groups again. The scramble crossing at Shibuya is as packed as a mosh pit of humanity. Less visible are the impacts on daily life. Many Tokyoites have noticed rising noise and waste in once quiet residential pockets as new hotels and illegal Airbnbs pop up. A recent report even linked skyrocketing land prices in Tokyo's central wards to surging demand for hotels and luxury accommodations. Another sign that tourism is reshaping the urban landscape. In November 2024, an incident in Tokyo made global headlines and horrified locals. An American tourist was arrested for vandalizing Meiji Jingu, one of the city's most important Shinto shrines. Security cameras caught him scratching initials into the shrine's 100-year-old torii gate with his fingernails. He later claimed he was just carving his family's names, oblivious to the cultural disrespect and damage. This brazen act was a wake-up call. If even Tokyo's grand shrines aren't safe from tourists behaving badly, what does that mean for the rest of Japan's treasures? Behind Tokyo's neon glamour lies another dark side of the boom, a human one. The tourism rebound has exposed a severe labor shortage and potential exploitation in the hospitality industry. Hotels, ryokan inns, restaurants, all are scrambling to hire staff after many workers left during COVID layoffs. By 2025, Japan is projected to be over 500,000 hospitality workers short of what's needed to meet the tourism targets. Those who remain often face grueling hours. The average hotel employee earns only about 3.46 million yen per year, approximately $25,000, far below Japan's overall average salary of 4.97 million yen. It's tough to lure workers back with paychecks that have fallen in recent years, even as other sectors saw raises. As a result, many businesses have turned to foreign trainees and contract workers to fill the gap. Japan's controversial technical intern training program, meant to teach skills to foreign workers, has supplied thousands of staff to hotels and shops, but has been marred by abuse and exploitation scandals. The influx of tourists has unfortunately coincided with stories of foreign workers in hospitality suffering wage theft and overwork. In chasing tourism dollars, Japan risks leaning on an underclass of exploited labor, a reality seldom seen in glossy travel brochures. Japan's southern islands are marketed as a tropical paradise. Emerald seas, coral reefs, unique Ryukyu culture. After 2023's reopening, Okinawa saw visitor numbers climb steadily, though still only about 50% of pre-pandemic levels by late 2023 as overseas tour groups returned slowly. But many Okinawans are wary about a full return to mass tourism. The memory of pre-2020 overtourism lingers here too. Locals recall busloads of day trippers crowding traditional villages and trampling over holy sites in their rush to sightsee. One notorious example was on Kudaka Island, a small sacred islet where tourists wandered off designated paths and disrupted prayer spots, prompting anger from residents. Keiichiro Nakamura, an Okinawan tour operator, responded by launching a website to educate visitors on proper etiquette and the island's cultural rules. The happiness of the locals is a crucial precondition for any successful tourism development, Nakamura emphasizes, a gentle way of saying that if tourism makes residents miserable, everyone loses. Environmental strains are also showing. Before COVID, fragile ecosystems across Japan's islands buckled under tourist pressure. Now the surge is back. On remote Iriomote Island, Okinawa's Galapagos of the East, about 300,000 tourists a year were coming to marvel at its mangrove jungles, overwhelming for an island of 2,400 people. Fresh water ran short during peak season, and endangered Iriomote wildcats, fewer than 100 remain, suffered more road accidents amid the traffic. In response, Okinawan authorities in 2023 announced Japan's first true tourist cap: no more than 1,200 visitors per day to Iriomote, roughly 330,000 annually. They are also limiting entries at certain sensitive jungle sites to as low as 30 people a day. Though largely voluntary at first, these measures signal a turning point, an admission that parts of Japan's natural heritage simply cannot sustain unlimited crowds. From Hokkaido's ski slopes in the north to Okinawa's coral reefs in the south, similar stories abound. In Niseko, Hokkaido, a ski resort town swamped by international skiers each winter, the local government introduced a lodging tax to fund infrastructure and manage tourist numbers. In Nara, home to sacred deer that roam the bowing for treats, rangers had to plead with visitors not to feed them junk food, after several deer died from ingesting plastic wrappers left by careless tourists, a pre-pandemic incident that residents haven't forgotten. Japan's World Heritage sites, from Shirakawa-go's thatched villages to Miyajima's floating shrine, have all reported issues with overcrowding and wear and tear. The problem isn't that Japan has too many tourists overall, it's that everyone goes to the same places at the same time. Over 73% of all tourist overnight stays are concentrated in just 5 prefectures: Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, Hokkaido, and Fukuoka. This intense spotlight on a few hotspots leaves other areas relatively empty. A silver lining for off-the-beaten-path travelers, perhaps, but a nightmare for those living in the hotspots. The breaking point came in a wave of dramatic confrontations and policy pivots as Japan's love-hate relationship with tourism reached its zenith. In early 2024, Kyoto officials took an unprecedented step. Effective April, tourists were banned from entering certain narrow alleyways in Gion, the first exclusionary measure of its kind. City workers put up signs in multiple languages at alley entrances, politely but firmly reading, "No entry for sightseeing." Isokazu Ota, a Gion community leader, told reporters, "We don't want to do this, but we're desperate." Years of pleas, posters, even 10,000 yen fines for harassing geisha had failed, so residents resorted to physical barriers to reclaim their streets. Hanami-koji, the main street, would remain open. Kyoto isn't trying to kill tourism entirely, but its hidden lanes needed respite. The move made international headlines as a symbol of overtourism's toll. Kyoto's mayor, Koji Matsui, defended the policy and a suite of others, saying the city must balance tourism and the livelihoods of local residents. That balancing act now meant telling visitors thus far and no further. A tourist magnet actually turning tourists away, but for Kyoto's residents, it was long overdue vindication. Meanwhile, at Japan's most iconic natural site, authorities were hitting the alarm. Mount Fuji, which attained UNESCO World Heritage status in 2013, had a record-breaking summer, and not in a good way. "Fuji is screaming," said one local official in Yamanashi Prefecture, as trail congestion, trash, and unsafe climbing practices surged. Over 220,000 people attempted the ascent in 2023, many of them ill-prepared day trippers hoping to catch sunrise from the summit. Rangers saw a spike in dangerous bullet climbing, hikers sprinting up overnight without proper acclimatization or rest, which led to exhausted, shivering tourists needing rescue. The mountain's small medical huts were overwhelmed with altitude sickness cases and even heart attacks. Litter accumulated at an alarming rate on the sacred volcano's slopes. UNESCO officials and local conservation groups began to whisper that Fuji's World Heritage status itself could be at risk if Japan didn't get a handle on things. So, for the first time in history, Japan imposed real rules on climbing Fuji. In the spring of 2024, Yamanashi announced that from July, anyone attempting Fuji's most popular trail must reserve in advance and pay a 2,000 yen fee. They also set a hard daily cap on climbers. No more than 4,000 people per day per trail would be allowed beyond the 5th station starting point. These measures aim to curb the free-for-all chaos on the mountain. At the same time, local authorities took an extreme measure at a famous Fuji viewpoint. In Fuji Kawaguchiko, that resort town with the picturesque convenience store view of Mount Fuji, officials grew so exasperated by throngs of inconsiderate tourists that they decided to block the view itself. In April 2024, workers erected a 20-meter-long, 2.5-meter-high mesh screen in front of the Lawson parking lot photo spot, a literal barrier to keep tourists from dangerously jaywalking into the road and trespassing on nearby roofs. The mesh net stood as perhaps the most vivid image of pushback, Japan physically shielding itself from its own visitors. Remarkably, these dramatic moves began to work, at least somewhat. By the end of summer 2024, climber numbers on Fuji had dropped approximately 14% compared to the year before, easing pressure on the summit. The dreaded bullet climbing all but disappeared after rangers enforced checkpoints and overnight gate closures. In Kyoto, geisha reported slightly less harassment on their walks to work. The no-entry signs acted as a deterrent, even if a few rule breakers still slipped in. And around Japan, a broader conversation was taking hold. Perhaps unfettered tourism was not worth the cost to communities and heritage. Even tourists themselves were starting to acknowledge the problem. A 2024 survey by the Japan Travel Bureau found that 30% of foreign tourists on recent trips said they personally experienced over-tourism-related issues, chiefly overcrowding at attractions. Many international visitors noticed the packed trains, long lines, and occasional graffiti or bad behavior by others. Interestingly, 63% of foreign travelers said they would accept paying higher fees or taxes if it would help preserve sites and reduce crowds. It was a hopeful sign. Visitors don't want to love Japan to death either, and many are willing to be part of the solution. By early 2025, the message was unavoidable. Japan's post-pandemic tourism boom had peaked in frenzy, and the country was forced to confront the dark side of its success. The climax saw something rare: the government, local communities, and even tourists all recognizing that the status quo had to change. Tourism, it turned out, could hurt a nation if left unchecked. The question became, how to tame the beast without killing it. What do you think? Has Japan's tourism boom gone too far, or are these growing pains on the way to a smarter tourism model? How should popular destinations balance welcome and protection? We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. The conversation, like the journey, continues.